Pleasure now to welcome to the stage my good friend and partner, Matthew Mandell.
Good afternoon. I'm going to move my table just a little bit so I can see them. Okay, hi. Welcome to the 2022 Candidate Forum hosted by the Library and the Westport Weston Chamber of Commerce. I'm Matthew Mandell, the Executive Director. I am also, a disclosure, I am an RTM member, an elected member of the community, and a member of Westport's Democratic Town Committee. But today I take that committee hat off and remain a completely neutral party in this debate, as we've done debates for over 10 years at the Earth Place and the Chamber of Commerce. Today's debate is more of a forum, a discussion. There'll be introductions by everybody, questions asked to each candidate, rebuttals by each candidate, as well as an open discussion that will be moderated and sometimes controlled and sometimes not. Depends on how the candidates react to the situation. So let me introduce our candidates. Toni Boucher for the Senate 26th District, along with Ceci Maher. Representing the 143rd candidates, Dominique and Nicole Hampton. And for the 136th is Alma Sarelli and Jonathan Steinberg. At this time, we are going to start to have a 1-minute opening by each candidate. We're going to start from stage right and go through all 6 to the left. And then closings at the end will in the opposite direction. So we'll be starting with Mr. Steinberg and going back in the other direction. In between will be the debate. Ms. Boucher, 1-minute opening, please. And the timing is there, although I can't really see it.
Is this on? Yes.
Can you see the numbers, people? You cannot see the numbers. Sam? Let's hold off a second. While he's working on that, I will independently time Toni. Go ahead, Toni, 1 minute.
Thank you. I've been Chief Deputy Leader in the Connecticut State Senate, Assistant Minority Leader in the House of Representatives, Wilton's Board of Education Chairman, the Connecticut State Board of Education member, and a member of the state's VOTEC Board of Education as well, in addition to being a Wilton Selectman. I've also held executive positions with very large multinational companies, founded small businesses in Wilton and Norwalk, and been a director of a leading institutional investment company where I co-authored the white paper, Ethics and Nonprofits. I have an UConn MBA, and I'm working with its business school to create an entrepreneurship department. I also have held Series 7, 63, and 31 licenses. But most important in this discussion is my private business background. I have firsthand understanding what it takes to start a business and create jobs. I also know how painful it is to keep a business running, how much it takes to keep them afloat, as the state often punishes businesses with high payroll taxes, high utility costs, and burdensome mandates and regulations that weigh it down. I feel I am best equipped to represent businesses in Westport and the region. That is why the National Federation of Independent Business Owners has endorsed my candidacy for the 26th District.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Maher.
Hi, I'm Ceci Maher, and I'm honored to be running for the state district in the state senate in the 26th district. Over the past 4 years, Connecticut's made incredible strides. We've gotten our state's finances back on track, implemented paid family medical leave, and passed strong gun violence prevention laws. We've made also critical investments in our infrastructure. This progress didn't happen overnight. It happened because people of every age stepped off the sidelines. This November, we're facing a crossroads. In the aftermath of the extreme SCOTUS overturning of Roe v. Wade and stripping women of fundamental rights, and the continued effort to undermine common sense gun laws, Connecticut's future is again at stake. I want to keep our state moving forward. From my experience as the executive director of Sandy Hook Promise to my work with Person to Person, I know what it takes to deliver concrete results. And for that reason, I hope you'll join me on November 8th to create a brighter future.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, and thank you to
minute.
the Westport Library and the Westport Weston Chamber of Commerce for having us all today, and everyone for being out here and watching online. I'm Dominique Johnson. I'm honored to be a candidate in the 143rd District, which is Norwalk and Westport here. I'm on the Norwalk Common Council. I serve all 90,000 residents in the city of Norwalk, and I'm honored to be there for them, being responsive and accessible to them. I've served since January 2020, and I've delivered results to the people of Norwalk with compassion and respect and empathy and integrity. I grew up in the Midwest. Well, now I'm a proud homeowner in Cranberry, just across the line from Old Hill with my partner Billy. And in the Midwest, I watched my grandmother's hard work. She worked on a farm growing up. She worked as a waitress. She worked at a toothbrush factory, and she taught me who I am with my values of working hard and giving back. And I'm excited to share some of my ideas with you today, formed by these values. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hampton.
Hi, yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Westport Chamber of Commerce, for hosting this event, and thank you all for attending. My name's Nicole Hampton, and I'm running as a Republican, cross-endorsed by the Independent Party for the 143rd District of Norwalk and Westport. I am a conservative, independent-minded African-American woman fighting to bring hope, integrity, and transparency back to our community. I stand for tax relief on small businesses, making Connecticut more affordable, public safety, and by that I mean I support the police. I think that we need to return law and order to our communities. And also tackling our current mental health and addiction crisis. You know, Hartford is broken, and we need common sense policies to restore our faith in government. And you know, my first 90 days up there, I want to get an audit. I want to audit on the education. Where is the extra money going that we can't account for? You know, it didn't go for prevention to protect our children. I'm wondering why. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Sarelli.
Thank you to Chamber and Library for hosting us, and to you, Matt, for moderating. I'm Alma Sarelli. I'm an immigrant from Albania. As a young girl in Albania, it was a dream to come to the United States. I saw the first place of freedom and opportunity, and now I'm here living the American dream in Westport, Connecticut. One of the proudest days of my life was one where I became citizen. My husband and I founded and run a business. We have 4 children. 2 currently going to Staples, and 2 graduated Staples and going to college. I'm running to represent 136th District, most of Westport in Connecticut Assembly, because I appreciate the life I immigrated to, and I want to preserve the American dream for future generations. It seems that Hartford views business as enemy, but vibrant commerce is the key to Connecticut's success. A strong economy is essential to provide an opportunity that attracts and retrains young people to the state, and the funding to make sure we offer the necessary service and support to those in need. It seems to me that, unfortunately, that rather than use the taxpayers' money wisely, Hartford has chosen to use it to reward political cronies. This must stop. We are to preserve this state for the future generations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Mr. Steinberg, 1 minute.
Thank you. My name is Jonathan Steinberg, and I've had the honor to represent Westport in the General Assembly for the past 12 years. These past few years have been years of remarkable achievement for our state, and I'm proud to have played a role in our partisan efforts to dramatically improve our fiscal stability, manage the unique challenges of the COVID crisis, and protect choice and other rights in Connecticut. In just these past few years, we have totally filled the rainy day fund, so we're better off than virtually every other state for the coming recession. We have paid down $6 billion in pension debt, which saves the state over $450 million every year, and we have cut taxes, particularly for seniors, on fixed incomes. Our state is finally on the right path to stability and future growth if we remain disciplined with our budget to weather the recession and make investments in critical infrastructure like roads, bridges, the electric grid, and broadband, and support small businesses that were hurt during the pandemic. My experience and my role here are important. I ask for your support on November 8th.
Thank you very much, all 6 of you. So now we're going to turn to the debate part. The way it will work is a question will be asked of one candidate, and their opponent will do a rebuttal of 1 minute. So it'll be 2 minutes, 1 minute, and then there'll be an open 4-minute discussion. So we're going to start with Ms. Boucher. And the question is, I'm sitting here with 5 women candidates. I think it says a lot about politics today, not just here in Connecticut, but nationally and even around the world. When it comes to women's health and reproductive rights, is Connecticut, heading in the right direction, and what would you do to make it better? 2 minutes.
Thank you very much for that question. It is top of mind of all women and a vast majority of men as well. I know that the Supreme Court case this summer was very disturbing to many people, including myself. I have spent 12 years in the House and 10 years in the Senate. All the while, there have been various types of bills. Though our pro-choice law went into effect in 1990, I did not come to the House until 1997. But throughout that time, there were many, many bills, and one in particular was the morning after pill, which I voted in favor of, and have always voted and been on the record clearly for women's right to choose. Connecticut passed a bill last year, which I would have voted in favor of, that secures it even more so. The decisions between the woman's body and the possibility of being pregnant should stay in the hands of the woman in the private sector. Government should not get involved in it. Many of us all have personal stories regarding this. It is unfortunate, though, it is one of the attack ads that I get routinely every time I run for office. Not that I'm not pro-choice, because they know full well that I am, but that somehow I'm aligned with those in the party that are pro-life. There are people that are pro-life on both sides of the political aisle. We should not demean them and insult them for their personal views. I represent this district for many years, I have, and I will continue, if I win, to be staunchly and fiercely pro-choice for women. I also support equal pay for equal work for women. We still have a little bit more work to do on that. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. 1 minute rebuttal by Ms. Maher.
So Toni and I both agree about reproductive freedom. I'm fully behind it, and I support the bill that was passed this summer on the Reproductive Freedom Defense Act. And I think what it comes down to when Toni says she's attacked on her position, it's not about her position that she's being attacked upon. It is about the fact that at the baseline, she votes with her party 97% of the time. And so if, as we've seen, the Republican Party then puts forth, as they have over the years, many amendments to change our bills, then how can we guarantee that she will not vote with them? As a matter of fact, she voted for 3 Republican amendments that were to protect women against domestic violence. And those amendments were to lessen the bill. And she voted with them. Ultimately, she voted on the bill because everyone did, but she voted on the amendments which would have damaged the bill.
Thank you. Ms. Boucher, if you want to start, we'll do a 4-minute discussion, open discussion. Any of the 6 are allowed to participate at this point. Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Keep it short, though.
Thank you so much. 80% of the time we all agree and we vote in favor of a bill. Very bipartisan. But 20% of the time we disagree. And the vast majority of that is because there are bills regarding higher taxes on business, on residents. It is about budget and financial issues that are hurting the state, and it shows in the lack of business growth. We are nearly 5% down in GDP, and we're the worst in the nation, our income growth. This is not good. We're the worst, one of the worst states to retire in because of affordability. So yes, I will vote down bills that punish business and punish the taxpayer.
All right, let's stay with the topic at hand, which is women's reproductive rights and their health. Mr. Steinberg, you're the one male sitting on this stage. You got something to say about this?
I certainly do. How long do I have?
You've got 15, 20 seconds. We want everybody to be able to weigh in if they want.
Last week, Attorney General Tong met with the Reproductive Rights Caucus, of which I'm a charter member, because we're very concerned about coming up with a strategy going forward after the Dobbs decision. The Attorney General made something very clear. We are not yet safe in Connecticut. We cannot continue to take these for granted. The things that we passed, including greater access to abortion services that was under my aegis as chair of the Public Health Committee last year, are only in statute. Unless we enshrine it in the Constitution, we are at risk. We've seen what the Republicans would do. They introduce bills every year for parental notification, even notifying spouses of abusers. This is not what we need to have going forward. The decision about reproductive rights is between a woman and her health care provider and no one else. It should not be reflective of anybody else's beliefs. That option must be protected. And I pledge to you, we will continue in my committee to improve reproductive rights, not just abortion rights, but access to services for everybody here in Connecticut.
Thank you.
This is
Anybody else
really
want to weigh in?
important.
Anybody else want to weigh in at this point on this issue? Go ahead, Ms. Hampton.
Hi, you know, the law is the law, right? And this is a question to divide good people. A woman's right to choose in Connecticut is not in jeopardy, okay? It's in our state's statute. I'm a mother, I chose to be. Everyone has a right in the state to choose their pathway. And thankfully, a woman's right to choose is not a jeopardy in our state.
Sarelli.
Yeah, I agree with women can have a choice, and I keep hearing this over and over. The Republicans going to vote against it, but I'm a mom. I have 2 daughters and I have 2 sons. I want to have a free choice. And in the state of Connecticut, the abortion is codified. It will remain that way. If I'm elected, I will not change it.
Thank you.
Well, no, let Ms. Johnson go. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mandel.
I'll let you finish, Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. I would like to say, please do not believe people when they tell you this is settled law. We are not safe in Connecticut if the federal Congress passes an abortion ban. We are not. Our safe harbor law is at risk. So I would say to anybody running for public office in the state of Connecticut right now, please ask them, will you support a constitutional amendment to our state constitution to defend and strengthen Roe? That is the answer that we deserve as voters.
And yes, I do.
Ms. Maher?
Thank you. So in order to put that constitutional amendment, which thank you, Dominique, because I was just going to go there. In order to put that into our Constitution, we must maintain our Democratic majority. That is the bottom line. Do not presume that because someone says that they are going to vote for it, that they will once they get up there, if their party has a history of not voting for women's rights.
Mr. Steinberg, why don't you finish up here?
I think it's been said, when they say codified, it's not meaningful. It's not settled until it's a constitutional amendment. This is still in front of us. We need Democrats to push it to its appropriate conclusion to protect women's rights. That is not yet the case in Connecticut. So don't let the Republicans fool you.
As a woman, as a mom of 2 daughters and 2 sons, I strongly stand by my words that I will not change the abortion. I'm pro-choice, and women should have a choice.
10 seconds, Ms. Boucher.
You are taught your word is your bond when you go to Hartford. That has always been my practice. Of course, I would support a constitutional amendment to support women's right to choose.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to skip Ms. Maher and move to the 136th, and the 143rd, and start with Ms. Johnson on this question. The second round of questions, the other 3, will go back to the different districts. So a little bit hippity-hoppity here, but it's a little different with 3 different races at the same time, and we do want to cover them all. So this question is going to Ms. Johnson. We had a drought this year. We've had droughts before, but last year we had huge storms and huge rain. It seems clear something is up with our climate. What are your thoughts on resiliency and sustainability, and what should our state be doing moving forward?
Thank you for this.
2 minutes.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Mandel, and for this very important question. I've been very proud on the Norwalk Common Council to be a leader in sustainability for our community. In fact, I was the first, I proposed and garnered support for the first climate action plan in our city. What that means is that we're going to be able to work to make sure that we protect the businesses, the homes, the people that are in most vulnerable areas from flooding, from the rise of sea levels in the Sound as we move forward. We have a water crisis. We also have a clean water crisis looming here too, because we know that the Supreme Court this past session, they struck down many important provisions in the Clean Air Act, and the legislature up in Hartford responded by passing the Connecticut Clean Air Act. I believe we're going to have to do the same thing in the legislature coming up. I'm proud that I am endorsed by the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters and the Sierra Club. I will be your environmental champion in the 143rd District. I think that we need to address many issues: clean air, clean water, and we need to make sure that we have enough water so the conservation that we've been doing in Norwalk, we've been under a water emergency, is I think exactly that, bringing us all together to understand that we are intricately linked, we are connected, and water is something that everybody has a right to, and clean water is something that everybody has a right to. I think that a lot of what we're going to need to do over the next few years is really invest in our infrastructure and make sure that it's green. Now, this will bring jobs to people, green jobs, but this will also make sure that what we do is build a future that our children deserve. They deserve clean air. They deserve to swim in the beach, making sure that it's clean. They deserve to have clean water coming out of the tap. And we deserve to make sure that what we are experiencing now, if it continues, that we can pivot and be very smart about how we can move forward with our precious natural resources. This is something that our young people deserve. It's something they care about deeply, and I think we need to honor that commitment they have to the environment by working hard for them. A lot of these young people can't vote yet, and it's important for us to vote for environmental champions like me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Hampton, 1 minute rebuttal.
You know, we should all care about the environment. The world's heating up. There's no doubt about it. We can see what's happening around us. But remember, we've been having these conversations since the 1970s. No one is denying climate change. Protecting the environment is important. And Dominique claims to be this environmental champion working to combat climate change. But how can Dominique take credit for groundbreaking environmental initiatives in Norwalk while ignoring negative impacts on the environment due to overdevelopment? Under Dominique's tenure on the Common Council, Norwalk dumped raw sewage into the Long Island Sound on multiple occasions. Norwalk is in the crosshairs of Save the Sound, an environmental watchdog group. Connecticut State Deep issued a consent order to Mayor Rilling on May 5th. The mayor's water committee did not learn about the water waste problem until mid-August. Where was Dominique? Banning plastic straws?
All right, we've got 4 minutes of discussion. Looks like Ms. Johnson wants to come up first. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mandel. I'd like to rebut that. While on the council, in fact, I have been very vigilantly working with Save Our Sound, especially in the background. I've been working on a climate emergency resolution, so in fact, I have been actually advocating in our city hall to make sure that we take that seriously. When I ran for the council last November for my second term, that is absolutely something that I brought to the forefront. How are we going to keep our head of harbor clean? What are we going to do about it as a city? And by the way, I wasn't on the council when the plastic straw ban came into fruition. However, I think that what's more important is that that is a beginning part of the more important work we're doing in Norwalk to make sure we have a holistic view about our environment. I have been side by side with Save the Sound and others to make sure that these very issues that my opponent mentioned are things that get addressed by our city government. Thank you.
Mr. Steinberg.
You know, water is our most precious resource. We're in a water-wealthy state in many ways, but the drought really indicates just how vulnerable we are. I'm proud to have been the proponent of creating a state water plan and for its passage. I'm very proud to be involved with the Long Island Sound Plan to protect our waterways as well. And I'm very proud for the efforts we have made to combat PFAS, those evergreen chemicals that are in our water supply and are very dangerous to us. There are many things that we really ought to be thinking about, including the particular water issues we have here in Fairfield County, where we're closer to the reservoirs, but further west we have real issues. Water management is something we all have to care a lot about. But it's not just that. It's other environmental issues like waste management, recycling of organics, grid modernization, so that we can compete in the modern world, particularly for all those who are reliant on energy and broadband to conduct business from home. I'm on the lead mitigation working group that deals with lead in our homes and in pipes, particularly water pipes, and I've also been responsible for creating a bonding fund for HVAC systems in our schools, where water incursion is often a serious problem, as we realize with Coleytown Middle School, which had to be stripped to the studs and effectively been rebuilt. It's remarkable how water affects us in so many ways. And this is a critical issue for us in Connecticut.
Ms. Maher.
Thank you. So one of the things Jonathan just touched on is something that's very dear to me. I lived in San Francisco for 3 months, and every single week we were recycling our vegetative waste. That is about 30% of our waste management right now, vegetative and waste home food scraps. And that creates methane. And methane is 25% more dangerous to our environment than carbon dioxide. So by creating, and I know that Westport is doing recycling and being effective in that food waste recycling. I know they have black gold sitting over by Wakeman Farm for people to come and put in their gardens. But the point is, we can do this. If a city like San Francisco can do it, we can do it in Connecticut. And reducing 30% when the cost of waste management has skyrocketed would be an essentially important thing, not only for our environment, but also for our bottom line.
Let me ask a quick question here. What can it be done at the state level, since we're down here doing it ourselves? What at the state level? Ms. Boucher, you raised your hand?
Can I answer that real quick? Stanford is also doing it. The city of Stanford has 2 separate location areas for waste management, for the food scraps, for recycling. And they have had it, it's been very effective. They started with 1, they've increased it to 2. I think we can be looking at this in all of our towns.
Okay. Ms. Boucher?
Having been up in Hartford for quite a long time, we've had a number of initiatives that have been worked on in a bipartisan way. Although I must say, being fiercely independent, I was the only one to vote for the global warming bill and have been environmental champion a couple of different times here as well. But one of the things that they can continue to do is to invest in the research and the propagation of alternative fuels. We do need to do that. Invest in mass transit. The problem of plastics is high on my mind. It's something that we need to negotiate with the business sector so that we can achieve a point to where as few plastic items are used as possible in our environment. Also to reduce, like was said, water quality. Heavy development affects wetlands, aquifers, and also, as was mentioned, the sidewalk composting programs are starting to take hold, and we hopefully will be able to promote that on a state level.
Anybody else? Ms. Maher, you spoke for a second. Any the other 4 want to talk about what at the state level can be done to help sustainability and deal with the climate change? Anybody else? Ms. Maher, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll be real quick. There was a bill put forth this past legislature that was to look at the packaging and work with manufacturers and businesses to reduce the packaging to the point of getting rid of plastic. So I think that that is something that is being done, it was done at the state level, didn't pass, and I am absolutely committed to bringing that forward again.
Ms. Johnson, 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Yes, we had a Solar for All program in Norwalk that was absolutely popular, and I think we need to have that again so that homeowners can get off of dependence on fossil fuel and have some money in their pockets. I also think we need to promote our electric grid reliability and this affordability by optimizing commercial and industrial energy storage solutions with a battery incentive program.
All right, thank you. All right, so we've done 2 questions. Now we're going to move to the 136th district, and we're going to start with Ms. Sarelli as answering the question. Question is, lately it seems what we teach our kids and offer them to read in schools is causing controversy. There's been an uptick locally and nationwide in censorship and attempts to ban books. Is this just a passing phase or a deep-rooted problem that needs to be addressed? As a state representative, how would you handle this?
Well, thank you for the question. We will ensure the families are front and center when it comes to decision about family members, education, healthcare, while protecting them from fraud and abuse. Parents are the first teacher for the children, and they're not politicians and government's bureaucrats. They have ultimate responsibility for their kids. Connecticut needs a family-first act to ensure they are front and center when it comes to decision about their family's education and healthcare. We will make sure their voice is heard in developing new government policies, and decision will not place under stress on families. Families are Parents should make the first decision for your children. Okay. So I stand by it.
All right. Mr. Steinberg, 1 minute in rebuttal. Hold on, reset the clock for 1 minute rebuttal. There you go.
Let's look at the facts. Connecticut, and Westport was just ranked the #1 school district in the state. We were ranked the top high school in the state. All 5 of our elementary schools were ranked among the top in the state. And our teachers are ranked #2 in the state, but I'm sure they're going to try harder to get to #1. People come to this town because of our schools. Parents know that regardless of their children's abilities, they will get a quality education with an individualized lesson plan to put them in a position to prosper in a complex world. We need students who are thoughtful. It's not what we teach, it's teaching them how to learn, to discern the differences between facts and propaganda, to weigh the merits of competing points of view, and to engage in civil and meaningful discourse on difficult subjects, even if they disagree with people. Don't be distracted by these attempts to talk about parental rights. Parents have plenty of opportunity for input via the PTA, via the Board of Ed meetings. This is a distraction brought on by a national conservative organization dedicated to the idea of dividing parents and scaring them. This is not real.
Thank you. Ms. Sarelli, do you want to speak some more, or we'll go to the rest of the panel? Rest of the panel? Anybody want to take this issue up? Go ahead, Ms. Hampton.
So this is absolutely real because as of last July in our state, my minor child can sign up for mental health, addiction services, have an abortion, and even get sex change without my consent. So this is absolutely a real thing, and it's in our Connecticut law, okay? So to say that this is a distraction is absurd. And I'm sure you guys were all aware of the recent board meeting for Staples High School for their banned book week. And the This Is Gay book, which is very inappropriate for any school, and I'm glad it was able to get taken out of Staples High School.
Ms. Maher?
Just quickly, those banned books had been sitting in the library for 8 to 12 years, and no one had spoken about them, okay? So to say that they are inappropriate and had created this furor here in Westport after they'd been in the library and no one had commented on them is really a very interesting take. But aside from that, what's happening is it's a soundbite ideology. Having this parental control is a did I go over the time? Which it just went off. Okay. So it is a national playbook. Do not give into it. In the health curriculum in Westport, every parent can choose to not have their child attend. They can opt out. Parents have control. They have input. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. I have a PhD in education, and so I have a particular expertise in this area, and I will leverage this experience up in Hartford for our district. You should be so proud of your schools here in Westport. I know you are. You have the #1 ranked high school in the state. You have teachers that are professionals and deserve the respect that that means. We should value our teachers and what they give to our community. And frankly, this is what happens when someone with no knowledge in education wants to go up and legislate about your children's future in Hartford when they legislate on conspiracy theory. We deserve better than this. We do, and your children deserve a future of their own creation, not have to live in someone else's past. Thank you.
Sarelli?
Well, I was raised by a teacher, so I know the values that my fathers instilled in me. And yes, we do have great teachers in Westport. But I want our teachers, and what I stand by it, our teachers to teach math, writing, and reading, and not push any progressive ideologies on them. I want the parents to be the front for our children. Who knows best, our children, than parents? And I do applaud our teachers. We do have great teachers, and I'm not against the teachers because I was raised by a teacher. So when it comes to the banned book in Staples Library, it wouldn't matter to me as a mom of 4 children and having my 13-year-old in Staples. Just by those books provided links and websites and phone numbers for our children to find sexual partners outside the school, to me it was dangerous. And that's why I went to Board of Ed a couple weeks ago to stand for this. For the safety of our children. It's nothing to do where you straight, gay, or wherever you believe. I have 4 children. I think about my children and their safety, and that's what I stand for.
Ms. Boucher?
Little known tidbit here is that I started right out of college as a high school language teacher until, of course, a business took over and I became a businesswoman. I've served in practically every level of educational governance: local board of ed, state board of education, House and Senate committee chair, children's committee, higher ed committee. I believe that our educational system works best the closest it is to its own people in the town. We have a wonderful system of boards of education that are represented by the citizens that can weigh in. They are supposed to be on the policy level making, not on the administration side. That's what they have a superintendent for. And I think that kind of communication and openness also to parents, one of the best ways to kind of mute a lot of the criticism would be basically to put the curriculum online. So parents have access to it and they would know what's going on in their schools. But both sides should respect each other. People work hard to serve on a board of ed. It takes enormous hours, but parents care more deeply and know very closely how the educational system is affecting their children. So there has to be a two-way conversation.
Thank you. All right, so we've gone through one
Toni.
round, one question for each of the different candidate sets. Now we're going to start back at the beginning, and we're going to go to Ms. Maher. And rebuttal will be by Ms. Boucher. Gun violence seems to be getting out of control. Just last week, there was a triple shooting in Bridgeport, and 2 police officers were killed in an ambush in Bristol. Connecticut has some of the toughest rules for gun ownership. Is more needed to be done, and what would you do about it?
Thank you. There definitely is more that needs to be done. So I've knocked on about 5,500 doors, and I can tell you, in my conversations with people at the doors and in conversations at coffee shops and conversations just talking with friends, people are incredibly afraid for their children. The anxiety that parents are feeling. I sat with someone who was having a cup of coffee last week, and he was sitting, he chose where he sat so that he could watch the nursery school where his son was, because he was so concerned about what happened in Singapore. I'm hearing it at the doors when a woman came up and she said, I don't know how I'm gonna have the conversation with my child about safety drills. We talk about our children's mental health. We are not doing them a service by creating schools where they have to have safety drills, where parents fear to have their children come off the bus. I worked at Sandy Hook Promise as the interim executive director, helping them with a reorg. And I can tell you, having met with the founders every single week, sitting on a Zoom, because it was during the pandemic, and being close like that, I will never allow guns to be unregulated, to be undone, to have amendments to our gun laws. You can count on me because I've seen the parents at the doors. I know what they're feeling. I've seen the tears in their eyes. We need to create permitting so that, not permitting, a statute so that only 1 gun per month. Will Haskell tried to get that across the finish line and wasn't able to, but I will take that up. And we also need to reduce ghost guns. What is happening in our society is not good.
Thank you. Right on time, too. Ms. Boucher, 1 minute, please.
This was an issue of guns and regulation of guns that took place when I spent some time, 12 years in the House. And I worked together with others on all sides of this issue to try to bring a compromise so we could put something forward. That is why we always had background checks in Connecticut. There were a lot of good laws that we had. At that time, I had a sort of favorable rating with the NRA. Well, that stopped for 10 years. The last 10 years, I've had an F rating. Because after Sandy Hook, and I was in the Senate, I was up in Bethel when this event happened, and John McKinney, the leader of our Senate on our side of the aisle, represented that school. And it was incomprehensible. It was horrific. He came back and said, we have to do something, but we can only get something done if we have both sides of the aisle represented. He tapped me as one of only 3 Republicans to work on that bill with 3 Democrats, and we produced the best gun law in America, we thought at that time. It did have a problem. The permitting process got stuck. So I had said, well, it went too far. That was the reason we changed it. It tampered with the constitutionality of it. New York has had to change theirs likewise. But then from that point on, of course, they've had an F rating. We have more we can do, and I'm dedicated to do it. We need to limit how many guns could be purchased in a day. In a month.
Thank you. Ms. Maher, you raised your hand. You wanted to comment?
I do. I just
Mr. Steinberg
really
after.
cannot, I'm sorry, Toni. I purposely didn't say anything about the fact that you have said they've gone too far, because I wanted to talk about how I felt about guns, and I feel it so strongly. But the fact is, when Toni was running, Ms. Boucher was running for governor in 2018, she said our gun laws went too far. And I'm going to quote, and I will point you to the Republican Connecticut governor debate that was on Fox Channel 61 and quoted in the Hartford Courant. She said, "When Sandy Hook occurred, they asked me to chair a school safety committee of that committee, not the gun portion of the bill. And I afterwards supported any amendment that would make more flexible, including the gun magazine size for guns from 10 to 17. I don't think we need to go any further. If anything, I think we need to make the gun laws a little more flexible." Now, I have been told again and again by my opponent that she didn't say that and that was misinterpreted, but I point you to the video that it is in. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if we finish up, we'll go back to you for a second, Ms. Boucher. Mr. Steinberg raised his hand.
Thank you so much for this. The bottom line is I had to step forward. I was the only legislator primaried as a result of that. I took the hit for that. I worked together in a bipartisan way to improve the language going forward, and afterwards also voted for every bill that restricted guns, including the bills that would protect women that were being threatened by their husbands, ghost bills, you name it. We went further, and we do need to go further still. I think this issue and the other abortion issue are a huge distraction to get away from what really matters to people right now, and that's the affordability and being able to continue to live and work here in Connecticut.
Thank you. Mr. Steinberg.
I remember very distinctly where I was when I heard about Sandy Hook, that horrific tragedy that took the lives of small children and their teachers. And I'm proud that we put together a bipartisan effort to pass the strongest gun reform legislation in the nation at that point in time. But we didn't stop there. I also advocated strongly for laws we passed banning ghost guns and bump stocks, fighting with conservatives on the Judiciary Committee to get those passed. The gun storage laws that we passed recently. I'm very proud to have been recognized by Moms Demand Action and recognized year after year an endorsed candidate by Connecticut Against Gun Violence, who I view as partners. We worked together to come up with a bill which recognized gun violence as a public health crisis. It relates to suicide. It's the #1 way in which people take their own lives. There are many things we have yet to do. I'd like to see required insurance for ownership of a gun. I like Will Haskell's idea of you can only buy a gun a month, which seems still like a lot of guns. 12 guns a year is a lot of guns. But the bottom line is we have more to do. Gun reform in Connecticut is only as good as what we can do with what our surrounding states are also doing. But we have been a leader. We have the 3rd strongest gun laws in the country right now. It's time for us to get back to #1.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. The tragedy in Bristol, reminds us of how important it is for us to not have weapons of war on our streets. And I echo Representative Steinberg in the work that we still need to do. And I would ask everyone, when you cast your ballot this November, please, more than ever, make sure you know who are your Moms Demand Action and Connecticut Against Gun Violence endorsed candidates. There are 3 of them up on this stage, and we will do this work to help keep our community safer for you. Thank you.
Ms. Maher, you want?
No, I just wanted to add that I am the only candidate in this race that is endorsed by Connecticut Against Gun Violence and Moms Demand Action.
Okay, quick thing, just New York had their gun laws overturned. They created new laws, they were overturned. There are 2 suits in Connecticut. Quickly, can anybody answer, what would you do in the legislature to try to stop the whack-a-mole that's occurring? Mr. Steinberg, quickly, Mr. Steinberg.
Well, first of all, I have great faith in Attorney General Tong for taking on the suits trying to overturn our assault weapon ban. He thinks he's on strong ground. But if changes need to be made, we'll follow a similar path to New York. We'll change our laws to accommodate those. I'm highly confident that most of our laws will stand up to scrutiny in court.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say that one of the two lawsuits that have been brought forth to Connecticut is by two Republican senators who have said that our assault weapon bans are unconstitutional. And I think that that speaks for itself. Two Republican representatives have filed this lawsuit against the state of Connecticut, against our own gun laws.
Ms. Boucher, you wanted to finish up?
I believe strongly that our gun laws will sustain any challenge that is thrown at it, no question. But I must tell you that I was followed into the ladies' room in the legislature by an Afro-American clerk that lives in Hartford and said to me, Toni, you guys can debate this bill all you want, but somebody comes to my neighborhood every weekend, opens their trunk and sells illegal guns by the hundreds. This is what's wrong. We have to produce, and there was a bill to study this issue, to directly address this, and no money was put in it, though it was, again, the agenda and the budget's controlled by the Democratic Party from the top to bottom.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move back to the 143rd Representative District and a question for Ms. Hampton. Our state has made some great strides coming out of the pandemic economically. Some would say we're in great shape, others not. The driver, of course, is business opportunity and the creation of jobs. In some areas, we can't seem to have enough of them, and in others, we can't find enough people to fill them. How will you both promote more jobs and fill the void?
Yes, thank you for the question. Well, my opponent's going to tell you that she cares so much about small businesses, and I want to ask her about the rezoning in Sono, because she voted along with Mayor Rilling, who tells her how to vote every time, and this is doing nothing but harming the small businesses. You know, and I actually signed the pledge with the CBIA to support common sense solutions to help small businesses sustain themselves. You know, and coming out of the pandemic, yes, everyone had challenges, but even during the pandemic, our small businesses were, ordered to stay closed while the, Walmarts and Home Depots of the world were allowed to stay open. I think it should be equal access for all businesses. And our small businesses need tax relief as well. And I stand behind creating that small tax relief. And I think there's a lot of work to be done, and I look forward to helping out.
All right, thank you. Ms. Johnson, 1 minute in rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. I would like to point out my opponent is clearly not understanding how our municipal government works. We have an executive who's a mayor and a legislative body that's a council, and my votes are very much my own. I'm an independent thinker, and I will bring that to the 143rd District. When it comes to small businesses, they are our heart and soul. I am where I am today because a small business employed me. It gave me ability to make my ends meet, it gave me health care, and it gave me the opportunity to pursue my education. And on the council, I've been very active in promoting our small businesses, particularly women and minority-owned businesses. I advocated successfully to make sure that we use some of our ARPA funding to infuse these businesses coming out of the pandemic. I made sure that we're going to fund with the ARPA funding, and I advocated for this, a small business development center that's going to be in the heart of Norwalk. And I think that we also need to start talking about how we can give small businesses tax credits. Small businesses employ the most people. They're vibrant in our economy. And in addition to this ARPA money, we're going to need some more funding to come from the federal government and the state government down into our innovation corridors here in the 143rd District. These small businesses, they spur not only our economy, but frankly, they provide stimulus to our community. They keep jobs growing. And I know that anybody who's worked for a small business knows how much they give back to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So jobs is the question. Who wants to talk? Mr. Steinberg. Keep it concise, Mr. Steinberg.
I'll try. When I got in the legislature 12 years ago, our economy was in a hot mess. We were recovering slowly from the recession, and then COVID hit. But I'm proud to say we're on the right path. Yesterday, I attended an innovation summit in Stanford, and the governor spoke and reminded us about how well we're doing in many ways. We've had more startups in Connecticut last year than we've ever had. That's a lot of jobs. We've attracted new companies to the state thanks to DEC Commissioner Lehman, and our governor. We have really advanced our advanced manufacturing sector. We're doing well with military contracts, and we're creating a lot of opportunities in the green sector for green paid jobs and in the bioscience, life science sector. We're on the right path, but we have more to do. We need to build an effective business ecosystem so that we can attract companies and build clusters around bioscience and green jobs, things of that sort. We need to really upgrade our grid. And I'm talking about not just rail, roads, and bridges, but our electric grid, our broadband, because people are working remotely from home. We got to encourage that as well.
Time.
Okay, I guess that's as brief as I'm going to be.
Concise, concise. Ms. Maher.
Okay, thank you. Well, I wanted to just say that right now, to build on what Jonathan just said, the Advanced CT has been out. Advanced CT is an office that the governor put in place, where it's the very first office of business development, where we have Peter Denius, who is going out of Connecticut, around the world, in Israel, and around the country, looking to businesses to bring them into Connecticut. And we right now, our private sector job growth has been 37,000 since August of last year. It's a 91.2% recovery rate. The reason it is down is because the only employment sector that is in decline is, and that contributes to that rate, is the fact that the government employees has decreased by 51%. 51%. So close to 92% recovery rate is pretty phenomenal. And the reason this is happening is because we have a legislature and a governor that are focused on business
Time. Just,
and technology.
We need to spread it around. We need to spread it around. Ms. Sarelli, you raised your hand. Yes, go ahead.
Connecticut residents face tremendous financial pressure through the toxic combination of runaway inflation, decades of tax increases, bad policies from the State House Democrats. The cost of living is untenable, and residents deserve robust tax relief that would include reducing middle-class income tax, reducing gas tax, eliminating the far-left progressive truck tax that will further increase the cost of food, goods, and service. Use a more COVID relief surplus to retire $700 million owed to the federal government for borrowing to support unemployment payments so the businesses do not get hit with a big unemployment increase. We received billions of COVID relief from the federal government. Let's use more of that COVID relief to retire the $700 million owed to the federal government for borrowing to support unemployment payments so business doesn't get hit. Big unemployment insurance increases. Connecticut had a large shortfalls in their unemployment fund. The shortfall gets charged to business, and if business is out or leaves the state, it falls into the business that remains in the state. So let's do better for that,
Thank
our
you.
businesses.
Anybody else want to
As a
chime in? Ms.
business
Boucher,
owner.
I see your hand up. Ms. Boucher.
Thank you. The best economy is one where the private sector creates and grows jobs. Government should provide a level playing field. That's its role. Unfortunately, Connecticut has been very heavy-handed. It's only been one party that has created a surcharge on corporations that was supposed to go away. It was 20%, a corporate surcharge on profits. GE, as a result, left for that, and many punishing reasons that business was not really feeling comfortable or friendly in Connecticut. Those large businesses also spawn a great deal of business for the small business sector, which is 70% of the economy. So their overhead payroll cost is 25% than any other state. That is too high. And the last couple of sessions were not friendly to business. There was a proposal of a digital advertising tax. There was a mill rate statewide on commercial property. They passed a highway user fee on trucking industry. There have been, I can go on and on about the various bills that are constantly being proposed when they already are feeling the weight and the burden of trying to survive here in Connecticut.
Thank you. Ms. Maher, well, let's go to 143rd for a second. No one has said anything from there. So Ms. Hampton.
I just want to add that, I do know how small government works, and, I will go and advocate for everyone to receive funding. My opponent mentioned that, she advocates for women of color. That's racist. I thought we were supposed to be inclusive of everyone. You know what I mean? I will advocate for everyone to receive funding. And as a woman of color, I am not oppressed, as my opponent mentioned the other day.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you for the opportunity to rebut that. I never suggested my opponent was oppressed. What I did say is that I believe, this was last night our debate in Norwalk, what I did say is that I believe we need to help women who want to create childcare centers. The question was about childcare. Have the means, the training, the opportunity to do that, because it's going to allow them to own their own small business and give back to the community and help our children be ready for school. What I did say is that women of color are disproportionately not able to access the same type of funding and access to these programs. So programs like All Our Kin, who operates here in Fairfield County, does a phenomenal job spurring this growth for these women. And so it's all women, but some of our disproportionality, I think, needs to be addressed, and sometimes that does affect women of color disproportionately. Thank you.
Ms. Maher, you want just a quick summation?
Just really quickly. The trope of GE leaving has been trotted out so many times. And the truth is, the business that is being developed in Connecticut right now is resulting in more business than one corporation, okay? So in Stamford, fintech, financial technology, I mentioned technology at the very end before. Financial technology is growing in leaps and bounds in Stamford, to the point that UConn has put in place, UConn Stamford has put in place the very first fintech degree.
Do you want to go for 10 seconds?
Yeah, I just want to say, you've heard all this talk about raising taxes. We just cut taxes.
Just for a short period of time, you cut the taxes. Where did you cut the taxes? During the COVID, our governor closed all the local shops, all our restaurants, but meanwhile left open Walmart, left all major, by saying like these are just essential stores, but moms and pop stores, they're not essential, when meanwhile they're selling same thing. Where's the help there? What did you do for our restaurants and stores that were closed here in Westport?
I'm sorry.
And you, Democrat Party is always known, it's just a fact, just look at the records, it's always known to have high taxes. They always build upon taxes, up taxes. I'm a business owner, I see that, I feel it firsthand, so.
Go ahead and answer.
I'm sorry you're unaware of the things we did for restaurants and businesses, but I'm glad to have that conversation separately.
All right, thank you.
You can have coffee.
All right. Can I join you? Last question before we see if we have enough time to go to an open question. This one goes to the 136th. It's Mr. Steinberg. Affordable housing is a big issue. Some even calling it a crisis. Local control has become a hot topic as legislators look to impose state mandates to find a solution. What will you do to help solve the housing crisis, yet keep towns in control of their own destiny?
First of all, I think everything...
Mike?
Oh, sorry.
You dropped it. You need to pick it back up.
I'm sure everyone in our community embraces the concept of greater diversity, not just housing diversity, but diversity in the people we have in our community. 830G, the infamous statute, has been around for close to 30 years. And while well-intentioned, it's turned out to be more of a sledgehammer than a surgeon's tool in helping get it done in our state. More importantly, I think we in Westport have demonstrated that a one-size-fits-all solution from the state is not what's necessary. Kudos to our Planning and Zoning Commission. We have our chair in the back of the room for doing the right thing, for building and encouraging the construction of multifamily housing in the right places, where consistent with smart growth principles, where there's infrastructure, where there are the amenities. We are doing it the right way. In fact, we were recently recognized for our inclusionary zoning plan of being among the best in the state for suburban communities. We have shown that not only can we get to a moratorium and be on the path for another one, we can do things the right way. So if there are going to be changes to 830G, which I would be in favor of and have actually worked on a bipartisan basis to see changes, let's replace it with something that is fairer to communities like Westport, where the formula actually sets objectives that are reasonable for our community, so we can continue on the path that we are on and be a model to other communities across the state to try to do the right thing. We need more affordable housing. This is not just a Connecticut problem. This is a national problem. We need more multifamily housing. We maybe need to reconsider workforce housing as well for our policemen and our firefighters and our teachers, because now traffic is so bad. If they're living over in Shelton and Monroe, it could take them an hour to get here. So we are open-minded about this. We are on the right path. This is something that Westport does well, and I'd like to see Connecticut follow our example rather than impose their own solutions.
Right on the button, Mr. Steinberg. All right, Ms. Sarelli. I mean, in terms of time, I'm not making a comment.
Who
on what you
better
said.
to decide what is best for our towns, except the women and men who are locally elected to lead them? Progressives in capital think they know better how the town should be run, favoring the agendas of lobbyists and professional advocates over the concerns of citizens who say the majority's party of progressive ideas on planning and zoning, taxation, and forced state mandates of school and lack common sense. I will fight to protect local control in all areas, ensuring local property taxes have the loudest, most influential voice on issues that affect the very fabric in their own community. Thank you.
All right, so we got 4 minutes to talk about this topic that's been developing for years and years in this town, in the state. Who wants to chime in? Ms. Maher.
So I do want to say kudos to Westport, because you have done a terrific job. 650 apartments and multifamily housing is either in process or planned, and that major kudos to you. But that is because Westport has looked to the future and planned. As an executive director at Person to Person, and I was building budgets and I was visioning what was I going to accomplish, I always planned, and that's what we need to do for our communities. Fairfield County has a 1.5% vacancy rate, and the state of Connecticut has a 2.5% vacancy rate. That is not good. We have no place for our college graduates to come back and live that's affordable. We have no place for our seniors to downsize out of their home and stay in their communities that they've contributed to for years. We need to do more, and we need to do more across the state. We cannot repeal 830G without impacting all the zoning laws, all the decisions that have been put in place over the past 30 years by towns and communities. We must look at it as to how we can fix it, and as Jonathan said, have it be less of a sledgehammer, and look to the fact that without housing, we cannot attract businesses and grow our economy. ASML in Wilton is putting in $200 million of growth in that, it's a chip manufacturer, semiconductor, and they are going to bring in 1,000 people. And where are those 1,000 people going to live? We need to put in housing so we grow our economy, and that grows our tax base. Thank you.
So let me redirect the question, because it was going back again. 3 of you are going to go back up to Hartford, or go up to Hartford. Maybe one's going back to Hartford. There is a concerted effort to have the state dictate how towns do things. What are you going to do up there that will make sure that the towns get to control their own destiny? Ms. Boucher.
Thank you for that. I know you have been a champion of this issue for many years. The state really does need to eliminate 8-30G and replace it with something that works better. It's obvious that it has been manipulated and abused by wealthy developers, particularly in Westport and some of our surrounding towns. There's no question. We need to take a more honest approach to it by actually including existing properties that meet income-based affordability standards and eliminate the requirement for deed restrictions for owner-occupied affordable housing, which restricts the ability to create home equity. And that's important, is be able to develop home equity. That's what home ownership has always done for people. And I think we can get there. Unfortunately, we've seen by the leadership now that they have been trying to expand, not reduce or reform it, but to expand 8-30G. Half a mile around every train station. They can control what gets built there. Think about the different train stations right here in Westport.
Anybody else? Ms. Maher.
The transit-oriented development bill that Ms. Boucher just mentioned did not pass, and I would not vote for it. So I just want to be very clear that as a legislator, I bring the needs of the district up to Hartford. And when I say that 830G should not be summarily dismissed, we have to think about all the laws and all of the decisions that have been made over the past 30 years that align to it. That doesn't mean we cannot amend it, but we don't repeal it. That is my position.
Anybody else? Ms. Sarelli.
Hartford should not mandate solution that mainly serve the benefits special interests such contractors and the risk disabilitation neighborhoods and potentially whole towns. So it should be decision maker in town. We have a first selectman. It's a reason why we elect them. They know our town better than Hartford. Hartford should not mandate anything over our towns.
Ms. Johnson.
I would say to those who seek to repeal 830G, be careful what you wish for, because there are other proposals out from other parts of the state that would be far more extreme. Thank you.
Mainly benefits the contractors, 830G. So they use it as a leeway.
Anybody else? Or we're up? Ms. Maher?
I'm sorry, I just have to say on that, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead, I apologize. But I just have to say on that, it doesn't benefit the developers if the towns plan. The towns have to plan. We need to create communities that welcome back I already said this, our college graduates that welcome business and retain our seniors. We need to do that, and if the town plans, then the developers cannot come in.
Anybody else? Ms. Hampton.
I think affordable housing is very important, and 830G definitely has to be amended. For example, a senior unit only counts as half a unit. Since when was a senior one half of a person? And then units built, so far, I think it's 20 years ago, don't even count, and it's just the cost of building these units. The cost to build affordable units are anywhere from $650,000 to $800,000 per unit. That's insane. And then not to mention the developer getting their tax credit. So yes, it does help the developer.
All right, thank you. All right, so that's all 6 questions asked directly to the different candidates. We have time for one more question. I had 2, but one of them was sort of glossed. We covered it sort of during the discussion. So this is an open one. We'll go for 5 minutes for open discussion, again, as if there were already questions asked and answered and rebutted. So this is the question to throw out to you guys. I-95 is constantly backed up. Metro North trains take forever now. Westport lately grinds to a halt due to traffic. The key to our future is transportation. What will you do to help figure this out, and how, when you're at the state level, will you do things? What will you do about it? Mr. Steinberg's hand was up first.
I've been on the Transportation Committee for 12 years, and I can't tell you how frustrated I've been by the Republicans undermining our efforts to make the investments in transportation infrastructure that's so critical to our economic future. Connecticut is, in theory, the gateway to New England, but our rails and bridges are deteriorating and need to be replaced, and our roads are something out of a third world country, and they're kind of embarrassing, frankly. The Republicans have made a lot of noise about supporting the Special Transportation Fund, but now in their latest proposal want to divert funds, which they always claim Democrats did, by endlessly extending the gas tax holiday, which was good in the short term and I support, but undermine our ability to get the matching infrastructure funds from the feds. That we need to provide matching funds in order to get all that. We have so many needs for transportation infrastructure. We need to create an integrated mass transit system, not just trains, but buses and other multimodal kinds of things that really work seamlessly and get you where you want to go efficiently. We know traffic is horrible here in Westport. We know it's terrible in Fairfield County. Infrastructure investment is my #1 priority in the upcoming session. We must really focus on maximizing federal dollars and taking care of the problems we have here in the state of Connecticut if we want to prosper economically and really help our citizens.
All right, who's next? Ms. Maher.
So on 95, between I think it's exit 7 and 9, there were tend to be about 746 accidents on that stretch because because of the fact that the traffic is backed up, the roads are overburdened. We need, and Stanford just got $1 million to study that, to figure out how to fix it and make things go faster. But we also need to get our bridges fixed so that our trains will go faster. And that is why it's incredibly important that you send people up to work with the governor to make certain that the monies go from the infrastructure, the federal, as Jonathan said, infrastructure bill, go into play immediately. And Governor Lamont has been, he knows this is coming, and he has been working on creating a construction workforce so that we can get started on it as soon as the money is in hand. We all know this is a problem. We know it's a problem, and we're committed to fixing it.
All right, Ms. Sarelli.
I just want to touch something what Mr. Steinberg said. You keep saying transportation. You've been a part of the Committee of Transportation for many years. You really have not delivered for the Westport and what it needs to be done. So you keep saying, yeah, when I get elected, when I get your vote, but you've been elected for almost 12 years now. So 12 years it took you to not deliver anything. So I think it's time for me to take that role.
Mr. Steinberg.
I would compare my record on transportation with anybody in the legislature. I have been a vocal leader on a variety of these subjects, and as I said, if it wasn't for Republicans talking the talk, but when it comes to putting money on the table, undermining our efforts to get the money where it needs to be, yeah, we'd have more success right now. And if you elect Republicans, you can be sure that we will not advance. The hypocrisy about not supporting the Special Transportation Fund will continue, and we will see our roads deteriorate, and God forbid we have another Mianus River Bridge collapse. And that will be on all those who have not supported our efforts to prioritize transportation infrastructure investment. And frankly, I'm scared. I'm worried about that. We need everybody on board, and the Republicans have not been.
Ms. Hampton, you reached for your mic there.
If there's a one-party rule up in Hartford and you're not happy with infrastructure, you cannot blame the Republicans.
You guys have full majority for all these years. Every time this comes up, it's always Republicans, Republicans. But the record does show, records do not lie, Mr. Steinberg.
Anybody else on this topic? Ms. Boucher.
As a long-suffering train advocate, and boy, was I. In fact, somebody once wrote a letter to the editor, Toni Boucher's the dinosaur because all she does is talk about trains. And in fact, I was beating government up so much about it that a new DOT commission says, I know, you need positive train computerized system for the branch line. Okay. They kept taking it out of the budget. And in fact, all of the funding was really geared towards Hartford and north or east when the massive amount of train ridership is in our area. It's Metro North. It goes to New York and back. And that's where a lot of focus should be. And there's blame to go around because our federal legislators also didn't bring home the funding required. In order to really improve 95, now, some of it's done because we added an extra lane at exit 14 on 95 and an extra lane on exit 8 in Stanford. But so much more needs to be done. Remember, there's a different grading requirement now. That windy 95 would never exist today. It has to be straighter. It has to be a different incline.
Finish up, Ms. Boucher.
So there's a lot that still needs to be done that is very difficult to do, but we need federal funding because the costs are in the billions of dollars.
Yeah, Ms. Johnson, I saw you grabbing the mic.
Thank you. I would just like to briefly say that I think to fund, for our costly infrastructure, but which is so important because it's an investment in our future, is to use public-private partnerships. We can prioritize improvements, we can help bridge financial gaps, and we can help encourage innovation. And so I think that what we do now for our infrastructure is a gift we give to our children. Thank you.
All right, thank you. You want 10 seconds? 10 seconds. All right, 10 seconds, and then we're going to go to summations.
Okay, reduce administrative costs. Our DOT, 6 to 9 times more than the national average, and speed up the commute and the rail. Rapid transit, we need an investment in that area.
All right, Ms. Maher, 10 seconds, go ahead.
Just really quickly, we need to look at the way our transportation system is set, because one of the reasons Hartford has gotten money and one of the reasons Hartford area works so well is because it is one transportation system where we are not. We are multiple transportation systems, and it doesn't go along the shoreline, it goes up towards Danbury. And that's not where the vast majority of people are moving.
Okay, thank you. All right.
When I say moving, I mean moving on trains and cars.
Got it. All right, so that's the end of the questions. So it's now summations, and now we're going to go 1 minute each. We're going to go from stage left to stage right, starting with Mr. Steinberg. 1 minute, please.
12 years ago, I had the honor of being elected your representative in the state legislature. You've elected me again and again and again. So you've made an investment in my experience and knowledge. So what's been the return on that investment? Let me give you an example. Connecticut, as we've talked about, had a horrible budget situation and a really sputtering economy. I was the chair of the Pension Sustainability Commission, which shined a spotlight on how important it was to increase our funded ratio for pension debt. I served on the Spending Cap Commission, and I led the House moderates during a period in which we rejected the bad Halloween budget, which led to the bipartisan budget that is really responsible for where we are today. What happened then? We imposed a spending cap. We imposed a revenue cap. We imposed a volatility cap, which is actually the most important because it smooths it out. What are the results of that? We have paid down our pension debt to the tune of $6 billion and saved over $450 million annually. All those things put us on a sound fiscal footing for the future. I suggest that's a pretty good return on investment. And I'm not even talking about the things I've done as chair of the Public Health Committee, protecting kids from vaping.
Finish up.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Sarelli.
I have 15 years of business experience. So I'm hoping on November 8th, you give me a chance and vote for a new difference, a new leadership. I have more experience than Jonathan in business. Jonathan, how many years do you have in business? 25. You have 12 years, you keep saying. So I just want to make sure, I am hoping.
It's a summation only, please.
I'm hoping that you guys are looking up for a new leadership. I hope I'll be your new representative to 136 districts. So, but I do want to say thank you to my husband and my family for supporting me on this, especially entering late in the race. So thank you to all of you today.
All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Hampton, please, 1 minute.
Yes, first off, thank you for hosting this event, and again, thank you all for coming out. I'm Nicole Hampton, and here's what I am for. I'm for public safety, inclusive of everyone. We need to restore safety in our community, from the youngest to the oldest. We need to stop dividing Connecticut like my opponent's party has been doing for years. I'll work for affordability, for all for parental rights, and bringing back the basics to our educational curriculum. I'm so grateful for our schools, but I'm also worried about some of the other issues we're facing. I want you to know that I will fight and care for our retired and elder population. I wonder who's been looking out for them. I have, and I will. We need change this November. We have a chance to save what's good about Connecticut. So when you go to vote, either by ballot or at the polls, I want you to ask yourself, who do I trust? The candidate who will reduce the cost of living, the candidate who will advocate to keep your family safe at night, the candidate who will fight for parental rights. The answer to all three is Nicole Hampton. I'm Nicole Hampton, and I'm asking for your vote November 8th for the 143rd District.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Johnson, 1 minute.
Thank you. This is such an important election for our children's future this November 8th. I want to make sure that we all know how important it is, because the decisions we make now will affect their generation and the generation after. You know, I am here because of 2 generations before me. My grandmother, she was a very tough and honest woman. She was the one that her brothers called to push the car out of the mud, pulled up her boots and did it. And I'm gonna pull up my boots for Norwalk and Westport. I want you to know I'm gonna focus on education and jobs and reproductive freedom. And on the Common Council, I've delivered results to the people of Norwalk. As I said, I proposed and garnered support for a climate action plan. I made sure those most impacted by housing insecurity were included in our non-discrimination ordinances. That's our veterans, persons with disabilities, and LGBTQ residents. And I ushered through $1.5 million of ARPA funding for our nonprofits. You will be my boss. I will report directly to you. I'm honored to earn your vote November 8th. Please look for me on your ballot. I'm Dominique Johnson. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Maher, 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. This November, we're at a crossroads. I mentioned that in the very beginning. This election is also about the very fabric of our state, the kind of Connecticut that you want to have for yourself and for your children. There are two different visions in this race that will lead to two very different futures. Over my years as a licensed social worker, then executive director of Person to Person, and most recently at Sandy Hook Promise, I have a proven track record of innovation and concrete results, meeting people's needs for today and planning for tomorrow. I'll do the same as a state senator, creating opportunities and delivering outcomes that benefit us all and move Connecticut forward. The 26th district needs a leader who can look forward and not just backward, who puts the needs of everyday people over partisan politics and works with everyone to create the Connecticut of the future. I'll always protect the right for an abortion and access to contraception, and we can't afford to leave reproductive rights in the hands of someone who voted with the Republicans 97% of the time. It will ultimately be up to the voters, to you, which path we take. Join me in voting for a brighter future for Connecticut.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Boucher, 1 minute, please.
The cost of living and doing business in Connecticut has become unaffordable. Taxes are the highest, second highest in the United States. People often ask me, why am I not a Democrat? Since my social policies are so liberal, as I helped to write the state's toughest gun laws, voted for gay marriage, supported pro-choice policies my entire time in elected office. Fiercely independent, I was the only Republican to vote for the global warming bill and the public financing of campaigns. But the Democratic Party is constantly pushing higher and higher taxes and anti-business policies. That's the reason why. They punish businesses with costly payroll taxes and mountains of mandates. So many small businesses can't keep up. 30% of restaurants have shut. Some have told me they moved operations even to Pennsylvania to survive. Yet Democrats added another 1% tax on their already 6.35% sales tax for all restaurants. Democrats passed bills out of committee that never passed before, regionalizing our schools, taking over local zoning, putting tolls on all of our highways, anti-business and anti-police bills. State government has become too costly and moving in the wrong direction. This must stop. And with your vote on November 8th, I pledge to be the fierce defender of our businesses as I've been known to be.
All right, thank you very much. So the election is coming up. It's on Tuesday, November 8th. But I have to give a pitch that before that, on this stage Saturday night, will be a great concert by Chris Jacobs as part of Westport Weston Chamber of Commerce's Supper and Soul. So if you'd like to come back and see this place completely transformed, come and buy tickets to Supper and Soul, have dinner downtown, come see the concert, and see the library in an entirely different state. November 8th is the election. If you don't vote, you don't get to say much after that. You must vote. Vote for any one of these 6 great candidates, Ms. Boucher, Ms. Maher, Mr. Steinberg, Ms. Sarelli, Ms. Hampton, Ms. Johnson. Thank you so much for coming here today, and thank you so much for volunteering your time and going up to Hartford if you do succeed. Thank you. Thank you for coming, everybody.